I'm Justin Martin, 34, and was married to Karen Martin Clements, 30, for 4 years. This is the tale of how I came to be hiding in plain sight. I met Karen Clements at a Saturday morning office party that I couldn't avoid. It was to introduce the new employees and to announce promotions. It was a celebration party. I was one of the people being given a promotion. My promotion was to a senior broker's chair at the brokerage firm where I work. My personal portfolio was ballooning, and I was well on the way to my first $1 million and a partnership at 27. My clients were doing very well also. Karen was on the arm of John Palmer, my chief competition for the next partnership. He was a major ass-kisser and very risk-averse, so while he seldom had big losses, his upside gains were only about 30% of what I did for my clients. As a consequence, my client list was growing and his was shrinking. He was and is an asshole that lets no slight to himself go unpunished. I disliked the jerk from the first day he joined the firm. His first statement after he was introduced for his promotion from associate to broker. "Good morning, people. I'm going to be the next partner within the next 2 years. I am also going to become the top producer here, so watch out." Well, that statement went over as if he had shit on the floor in front of the office door. One of the partners walked up to the podium and angrily grabbed his arm and took him into a cubicle to berate him in a private setting. He then raised his voice and everyone and their dates and spouses could hear. The first question was, "Do you want to be working here tomorrow?" Before John could answer. If you do not go out there and offer a sincere apology to those people who have proven to be valuable employees, you will not be here tomorrow. You need to tone down your undeserved arrogance and start living up to the person you are in your own mind. You ain't there yet. He issued the apology and went back to the partner and whispered something to him. The partner nodded, and that was the last we saw of the asshole that day. He apparently went back to where he was living. He left Karen at the office. The rest of the promotions and awards were made, except for mine. My promotion was made last, and I was asked to say a few words. "Good morning. I know that you don't want a long-winded speech, but remember it is me speaking." That brought some chuckles. I need to thank our research people. They are the ones that helped me choose a strategy for each of my customers that I would not have received without their help. So, research, when the party is over, lunch is on me at O'Casey's. Then I walked back to join the party. Another of the partners came up to me and quietly told me that I would get my partnership when the next board meeting occurred. He also asked me to take the young lady that came with John to her home, or wherever she needed to go. I went over to the young lady, who had not been introduced to the group, and introduced myself. After she introduced herself, I explained to her that I was assigned to take her to her home, or wherever she needed to go. I also told her with a slightly amusing smile, "That is the most pleasant assignment that I have been given in ages." She giggled. "Maybe not. I could be the Wicked Witch of the East, and you just haven't seen that side of me." "I doubt that very much. A fairy princess or a genie, but not a witch." That got a full belly laugh. Then she explained that she was John's cousin by marriage, and she had been dating John. She added that his words and actions today meant that she would not be dating him again. I took her back to her apartment. When I dropped her off, I laughed and explained that the condo I was leasing was just outside of her complex's fencing. I pointed to the building. She asked me if we could meet away from the office sometime. I said that I would like that, and we exchanged phone numbers. I headed back to the office and worked. John came to work the next morning and took his place in his cubicle. My old cubicle was next to his. He looked into the cubicle, probably to insult me again. Something he did with great regularity. He discovered the cubicle empty, and thinking I had quit or been fired, he stood by with a whoop and a fist pump only to see the sign painter putting my name on my new office. John was silent for the rest of the day. For that matter, he never gave me another verbal insult. I called Karen, and we made a date for the following weekend. We had a great time, and more discussion of her cousin. She told me that John was extremely angry when he called to inquire about how she got home from the party. When she told him that she was done with him and that I had rescued her from being stranded at the party, he ended the call. She went on to say that she hadn't talked to him since that call. We dated for about 6 months, and Karen was offered a promotion that she had worked hard for, but would require her to move away from the city. We had a goodbye dinner and a wonderful night in her apartment. Breakfast was entertaining, and she dragged me back to her apartment for a goodbye session. 2 years later, she returned with another promotion. She called me as soon as she arrived in town. We got together to have coffee and catch up. I explained that while I dated several nice ladies, none of them were Karen, and I was not intimate with any of them. Karen said basically the same thing. I told her of my promotion to full partner and of John quitting when the partnership was announced. Karen laughed and said, "John is and always has been said a legend in his own mind." Then she added, "Watch your back, Justin. John is not one to take a lost prize to someone else without trying for revenge." We made arrangements for additional dates. We began a courtship dance that lasted 18 months. I asked her to marry me, and she agreed. We both decided that we needed to protect our assets, so we had a prenuptial agreement drawn up. It protected each of our premarital assets and provided penalties for adultery and abuse. It also set conditions for custody of any children we might have. The wedding was great, and the reception was a fun and happy party. We honeymooned on a Caribbean cruise to the islands of Antigua, St. Kitts, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We had a glorious trip and came home to my wedding present for my bride. It was a home on 80 acres in the little town of Pearson, MI. It was only about 25 minutes from my office in downtown GR, and only about 15 minutes from Karen's office in Cedar Springs. I did have the home in my name only, and the purchase date was several months before the wedding. I explained to Karen that the home was mine, and I had been setting it up for a family to live in as I expected to be a father when she was ready. She loved the place, especially when she saw the 6 horses that were in the corral. She chose a bay gelding as the horse she wanted. Maybe it would be more appropriate to say the bay chose her. He came right up to her when she went to lean on the top rail. I carried her over the threshold, and she took one look and started laughing. Every visible room was vacant except for catalog furniture pictures that were blown up to poster size. The kitchen had all new appliances, a card table, and 2 folding chairs. The bedroom, when we got to it, had a king-size mattress and box spring on the floor and 2 tall table lamps. I told her to buy what she wanted to furnish the house. Karen turned to me with a big smile and said, "Nice to see a well-furnished home. You nailed it. This place has all the essentials. I think I can supply us with some luxuries like bedroom, living room, and kitchen furniture, maybe even enough for the extra bedrooms and an in-home office." Then she grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the bed. Clothes flew in all directions, and a wonderful fun time was had by all. We had all of the normal ups and downs, the arguments, and the make-up sex. Things were great until about 18 months after we married. She started to become distant and unloving. We had a very big argument about nothing. She froze me out in our marriage bed. Then Karen came home from a doctor's visit with a big smile on her face and a big bounce in her step. She proudly announced that we were going to be parents. I asked her how far along the doctor said she was. She said 6 or 8 weeks. I didn't at that time think something was amiss. Afterward, I had a moment of clarity. Later that night, I asked Karen again how far along she was supposed to be. She again said the doctor said 6 to 8 weeks. I got up and grabbed my clothes for the next day and went into the guest room. Karen obviously forgot the big argument that we had just over 3 months before. She had refused me sex for over 8 weeks. I knew then that something was rotten in Denmark. I was extremely pissed, and Karen seemed oblivious, except she did ask why I wasn't sleeping next to her. I refused to answer until I had a plan in place. A week later, things got even worse. I woke up normally with a major piss hard. Then when I went to piss, it felt like my banana was on fire. I had enough STI stories to figure out that I had a dose of the clap. I went to the health department and got tested. It came back positive for gonorrhea and, as icing on the cake, chlamydia. I listed all of my recent sexual partners on one line. There was only one name on the list, Karen. I talked to the people at the clinic and asked that they delay for 5 days talking to my wife. That would make it the next Wednesday. It would actually be 8 days. When they understood that it was my wife, they agreed. I drove toward home in an awful mood. I stopped at the drugstore for the 3 prescriptions that the doctors at the clinic prescribed. I moved into the guest room again and moved my dresser into it. I took all of my hanging clothes into the guest room closet. Karen came home from work as I was just taking the last of my clothes into the guest room. "Why are you moving your stuff? I thought you were over your snit." I am over my snit, as you call it. I just got back from the doctors. I have an infectious disease, and I don't want to hurt your baby, so until I am not infectious, I will stay away from you, I replied. "Well, is there anything I need to worry about? And what did you mean when you said the baby is mine and not ours?" "You think about it for a while and you will figure it out in a few days. For now, just stay away from me until I get the all clear," I answered. I started my exit strategy that evening. I decided to leave, and I also decided to wait for the divorce for the kid to be born. I knew it wasn't mine, but I had no idea who was the father. Karen will know that. I know she is cheating, but I have a plan to disappear so she can't have me served. I learned a trick in grade school playing hide and seek in the gymnasium. We would sit on the floor in a circle in the middle of the basketball court. The child that was it would go and sit on the piano bench and lean down on the closed keyboard, cover his or her eyes, and count. The 5 children who were chosen to hide would hide anywhere they could, but they were not allowed to leave the gym. When my turn to hide, I whispered to 2 of my friends to leave a space between them to let me sit there. The it girl put her head down and started counting. I ran around in a noisy circle, then turned and tiptoed to my friends and sat down on the floor just like I had never left. It worked several times, and it finally was banned because those kids who used it were almost never caught. I had an idea that would allow me to hide in plain sight. It didn't involve a name change. It didn't require surgery. It didn't even require me to leave the area. It took me 3 days to start making my move. I had called in sick for the entire week and the next as soon as I discovered the disease. That Friday morning, I packed all of my stuff and went to an extended stay hotel. I contacted and arranged to have my house put on the market with an initial inspection next Thursday. Karen would know that I knew by then. She probably would scream bloody murder and accuse me in absentia of cheating on her. Her one blind spot in an otherwise almost perfect personality was that nothing was ever her fault. She refused to accept the blame for anything. She probably believes her baby was made by me. Cheating would mean she did something wrong. I knew that my leaving would vindicate in her mind that it was me that was wrong. But when the house and property were going on the market, she would understand that whether I was right or wrong, she was without a home and would have to find some place to live. If her sugar daddy or boyfriend or lover or whatever he was to her bought the property, then she could stay. But if the lover was as I suspected John from our first meeting, he doesn't have the means to buy the place. I was going to hide in plain sight, but I would not be recognizable. I kept up on the properties for sale in the county, and in nearby Langston, an Amish family was moving to a bigger farm, and because no one in the Amish community wanted to buy the place, they put it on the open market. It did not have electricity or up-to-date plumbing, but I could have that put in. The price was very cheap for the 92-acre property, and it was only 20 minutes from Pearson. I would not have the property in my name, but it would be in the name of my trust fund. It would be a matter of public record, and Karen knew of the trust fund. The sale of my current house would be handled by an agent, so if Karen or her lover bought it, I would not be there for the close. I sold my partnership back to the brokerage, cashed out my personal bank accounts, and had my stocks assigned to the trust. I had a couple of estate and criminal lawyers check to see that what I was doing was legal and that I could not be compelled to give up assets in my trust. They assured me that while it was mean, it was legal. I had almost $3 million in liquid assets, and the trust had another 5. I could hide out for years. Then I took on the Amish style of dress and facial grooming. In 4 weeks, I looked like most of the other men in the community. My car was parked out of sight in the barn, and I had several neighbors leave their horses in my fields. I even bought an Amish black buggy and parked it alongside of the house. I was gone Wednesday when the health department and the sheriff arrived to give Karen the bad news. She was compelled to list her sexual partners for the last year as the disease was advanced. I had paid a couple of $1,000s to one of the people at the health department to give me her list. At first, she tried to say it was just me, but the diseases were very advanced in her and only had just started in me. She ended up spending a weekend in jail before she gave up 4 names. John Palmer was one. I did not know the other 3. I decided to have them investigated, and it turns out the other 3 were working with Karen. Somehow, John was injured when shot in a drive-by shooting and was rendered impotent. That cost me 10 big. Then Gary Masters, Ralph Simmons, and Frank Liddy were each victim of a mugging. For some reason, my name never came up as a suspect. At least I was never interviewed. The house quickly sold. And surprise, my trust was the buyer. Karen had to leave as the new owners wanted immediate possession and paid her a small premium to buy the furniture that was in the house. She had enough to buy a house in the village or in Grand Rapids. I relished in the appearance of just another Amish farmer. I actually saw Karen drive past several times. I knew she was going to the prenatal clinic in Greenville. After the baby was born, I was going to contact my lawyer and have him serve Karen with divorce papers. After thinking it over, I went ahead and started the divorce. The house was rented to an adjunct professor at Ferris State College. He had a 2-year contract and didn't want to live near campus. I planned to move back when the divorce was final and after the professor's lease was up. Karen fought the divorce. I had my lawyer present the names of her lovers and a blood sample to prove I was not the father of her baby. Karen fainted, and her lawyer dropped the objections to the divorce. The judge looked at the prenup and awarded Karen $1. The divorce was final about 6 months ago. Karen had a miscarriage and lost the baby. I decided I liked the simple life I was living in Langston. I took over an adjacent farm when it went up for sale and had a newlywed Amish couple move in to work the 2 properties. I sold the Pearson property at a hefty profit to a logging company run by a couple of my Amish neighbors. They logged it for all of the hardwoods and white pine, and then subdivided it and sold it off at a profit. I even worked as a general laborer for them occasionally. I never have come face to face with Karen since the divorce, but I have kept track. She must have had an epiphany as she was living like a nun, and only leaving the small house she bought for work and to go to the store. She never has visitors that I have found out about. I am sad that she had cheated on me, but I was not lonely as the local Amish community had pushed me on their single, non-Amish friends. I have a couple of nice younger ladies that I entertain 1 or 2 weekends a month. They each know of the other as they are spinster sisters. I have invited them to move in with me. I am anxiously waiting for their answer. Life goes on. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I knew my marriage was dying long before I found the proof. You feel it in your bones first, that shift in the air, the way conversations start feeling like negotiations between strangers. But admitting it meant facing a reality I wasn't ready for. So I buried the knowledge deep and kept pretending everything was normal. The unemployment hit me harder than I expected. 3 months after the layoffs at Morrison Tech, I was still sending out resumes and getting form rejection letters. Erin was supportive at first, telling me we'd figure it out together, that her salary at the marketing firm could carry us for a while. But support has a shelf life, and I watched it expire in slow motion. The changes started small. Erin stopped asking about my job interviews. When I'd update her on potential leads, she'd nod absently while scrolling through her phone. The eye contact disappeared first. During dinner conversations, she'd look past me or down at her plate. It was subtle enough that I could convince myself I was imagining it. Then came the phone. Erin had always been casual about her phone, leaving it on counters, asking me to check messages when she was driving. Suddenly, it was glued to her hand, screen down on surfaces, buzzing constantly with what she called work emergencies. When I asked about the increased hours, she'd get defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she'd say. "I'm carrying the financial load right now." The guilt was effective. I was the unemployed husband questioning his working wife's dedication. So I stopped asking, but I kept noticing. Erin started showering immediately when she came home from work. Not after dinner, not before bed, immediately. She'd walk through the door, barely acknowledge me, and head straight for the bathroom. When she emerged, she'd be different, more relaxed, like she'd washed away whatever had been bothering her. Her grooming habits changed, too. New perfume appeared on the dresser. She started getting her nails done every week instead of every month. The expensive salon visits that we couldn't really afford became non-negotiable expenses. When I mentioned the cost, she reminded me that she needed to look professional for work. "Besides," she said, "I'm the only one working right now." The knife twisted a little deeper each time. Our physical intimacy evaporated. When I'd reach for her in bed, she'd claim exhaustion. When I'd suggest weekend activities, she was too busy catching up on work projects. The woman who used to greet me with kisses started offering distracted waves from across the room. I began cataloging these changes like evidence in a case I didn't want to build. Late nights became more frequent. Working dinners with colleagues became weekly occurrences. Her explanations grew more elaborate and defensive when I'd ask simple questions about her day. The paranoia felt toxic, eating at me from the inside. I'd lie awake while she slept, analyzing every interaction, every excuse, every new behavior. Part of me hoped I was losing my mind, that unemployment depression was making me paranoid and suspicious of a wife who was simply stressed about supporting us. But the other part of me, the part that paid attention to details, knew better. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late September. Erin bounced through the door with an energy I hadn't seen in months. "I'm going on a girls' weekend," she announced, not asked. "Sarah's been planning this spa trip to the mountains for weeks. We leave Friday after work." Sarah, Erin's college friend who lived in Denver and rarely visited. Sarah, whom Erin hadn't mentioned in months. "That sounds expensive," I said carefully. "I need this, Mark. I've been under so much stress." Her tone carried a warning. Don't be the unemployed husband who denies his working wife a weekend away. But something in her eyes, the way she couldn't quite meet my gaze, made my stomach clench with recognition. This wasn't excitement about a spa weekend with girlfriends. This was anticipation of something else entirely. That night, as Erin packed with nervous energy, chattering about massages and hiking trails, I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. Because living in limbo, questioning my sanity while watching my marriage die in real time, was destroying me already. The GPS tracker cost $47 on Amazon. Prime shipping, guaranteed delivery by Thursday afternoon, 12 hours before Erin's departure. As I clicked purchase, my hands trembled with the weight of crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Installing tracking software on my laptop felt like learning a foreign language. The instructions were simple enough. Create account, sync device, monitor location. But every click felt like a betrayal. Not of Erin, but of the man I used to be. The man who trusted blindly, who gave benefit of doubt, who believed in the sanctity of marriage vows. That man was naive. This man, the one downloading surveillance apps at 2 in the morning, was pragmatic. I practiced the installation on my own car first, familiarizing myself with the magnetic mount, testing the battery life, learning how to access the tracking interface. The device was smaller than I expected, about the size of a matchbook, designed to hide under wheel wells or bumpers. Technology had made betrayal easy to commit and equally easy to discover. Wednesday night, I barely slept. Erin lay beside me, breathing peacefully, completely unaware that her husband was planning to surveil her weekend activities. Part of me wanted to wake her, confront her with my suspicions, demand honesty, but confrontation without proof would give her the opportunity to craft better lies, to cover her tracks more carefully. If I was wrong, I'd apologize and seek counseling for my paranoid thoughts. If I was right, I needed evidence. Friday morning arrived with cruel normalcy. Erin hummed while making coffee, kissed my forehead goodbye, and promised to call when she reached the spa. Her overnight bag sat by the door, too large for a 2-day trip, packed with care that suggested more than casual weekend comfort. "Have fun," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I will. I really need this break." After her Acura disappeared down our street, I retrieved the tracker from my toolbox and walked outside. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was gardening, and I waved casually while heading toward the garage. Normal husband behavior. Nothing suspicious. Under Erin's wheel well, the magnetic mount clicked into place with satisfying finality. The LED light blinked green. Signal acquired, battery full, tracking active. My marriage was now under electronic surveillance. The waiting began. I tried to maintain normal routines. Breakfast, job search emails, phone calls about potential interviews. But my attention stayed fixed on the laptop screen showing Erin's location. She headed east on I-70 toward the mountains, exactly as expected for a spa weekend in Breckenridge. Then she stopped. The red dot representing my wife's location remained stationary for over an hour at a highway exit 30 miles from any spa resort. I zoomed in on the satellite view. A truck stop with a McDonald's and gas station. Bathroom break, I told myself. Grabbing lunch before the final push to the mountains. But the dot didn't move toward Breckenridge. It moved south, toward Colorado Springs. My stomach dropped as I watched her location shift to an upscale hotel district I recognized. The same area where Erin's company held annual retreats. The Broadmoor Resort Complex, where she'd attended conferences before, where she'd mentioned colleagues stayed during business trips. The red dot stopped at the Cheyenne Mountain Resort. I sat staring at the screen, watching my marriage officially die. This wasn't a girls' weekend. This was a romantic getaway with someone else. Someone who warranted the expensive hotel, the careful grooming, the nervous excitement I'd witnessed. The drive to Colorado Springs took me 90 minutes. 90 minutes to transform from suspicious husband to confirmed cuckold. I parked across the street from the hotel entrance and waited. Engine running, air conditioning battling the afternoon heat. At 4:30 p.m., I saw them. Erin emerged from the hotel lobby hand in hand with Ben Morrison. The same Ben Morrison from her office. The same Ben she'd complained about for months, calling him arrogant and overbearing. The same married Ben, with 2 young children whose photos she'd shown me from company picnics. They weren't acting like colleagues. Ben's arm wrapped around Erin's waist with familiar intimacy. She leaned into him naturally, comfortably, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. When he kissed her temple, she smiled with genuine happiness, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I grabbed my phone and started recording. They walked to a red BMW convertible, Ben's car, judging by how easily he found the keys. Erin climbed into the passenger's seat with practiced grace, immediately reaching over to touch his arm as he started the engine. Their conversation looked animated, flirtatious, happy. I followed them to dinner at an expensive steakhouse, maintaining careful distance. Through the restaurant windows, I watched them share appetizers, lean across the table for intimate conversations, laugh at private jokes. Erin looked radiant in ways I hadn't seen in our own home for months. This wasn't a new affair. This was an established relationship, complete with comfortable routines and emotional intimacy. They had history, inside jokes, a rhythm that spoke of regular encounters. My wife was in love with another man. I drove home in numb silence, my phone full of photos and videos that would soon destroy multiple lives. The evidence was irrefutable, the betrayal complete. But instead of rage or heartbreak, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. The uncertainty was over. The paranoia was validated. The man I'd become through months of suspicion and doubt could finally stop questioning his sanity and start planning his response. Erin had made her choice. Now I would make mine. Monday morning, while Erin slept off her spa weekend, I sat in attorney Margaret Fleming's office reviewing my options. Fleming specialized in divorce law with a reputation for protecting men's assets in contested proceedings. Her initial consultation fee was $300 I couldn't afford, but considering what I stood to lose without proper representation, it was the best investment I'd ever made. Adultery affects divorce proceedings in Colorado, Fleming explained, reviewing the photos on my phone. We're not a pure no-fault state. Infidelity impacts asset division, especially when marital funds were used to support the affair. She outlined the process with clinical precision. Document everything. Protect assets before filing. Gather evidence of financial misconduct, hotel bills, restaurant charges, gifts purchased with joint accounts. Create an irrefutable case that would minimize my financial exposure and maximize Erin's consequences. Do you know if she's spent marital money on this relationship? Fleming asked. I thought about the expensive salon visits, the new clothes, the elaborate excuses for working dinners. Probably. How do I prove it? Bank records, credit card statements, receipts. You have legal access to joint accounts. Use it. That afternoon, while Erin worked late, or claimed to, I began my investigation in earnest. Our home computer contained 2 years of financial records. Credit card statements told the story of an affair funded by joint assets. Charges at expensive restaurants on evenings when Erin claimed to be working late, hotel bills that didn't correspond with business travel, purchases at Victoria's Secret that never appeared in our bedroom. The paper trail was damning. I opened a new checking account at a different bank, slowly transferring money from our joint savings. Not stealing. Protecting assets that would otherwise disappear in divorce proceedings. Fleming had been clear. In contested divorces, the spouse who moved first usually fared better. Changing passwords came next. Email accounts, social media profiles, financial platforms, anything Erin might use to monitor my activities or access joint resources. I documented every change with timestamps and screenshots, creating a record of asset protection rather than malicious interference. The most difficult part was maintaining normalcy at home. Erin returned from her girls' weekend glowing and relaxed, full of stories about spa treatments and hiking trails. She showed me photos on her phone, carefully curated images that supported her cover story. No Ben in sight, though I noticed her manicured nails and professional makeup suggesting preparation for photographs. Making sexy pictures for photograph? How was Sarah? I asked over dinner. Great. Stressed about work, but that's nothing new. The spa package was worth every penny. The lies came so easily. Erin looked me in the eye while describing fictional massages and imaginary conversations with a friend she'd never visited. Her performance was flawless, practiced, suggesting months of deception I'd been too trusting to notice. I spent evenings researching Ben Morrison while Erin watched television, oblivious to my activities. LinkedIn provided his professional background. Marketing director, married to Jennifer Morrison for 8 years, father to Emma and Jake Morrison, ages 6 and 4. His company profile showed recent promotions and salary increases, explaining his ability to afford expensive hotels and dinners. Facebook revealed more personal details. Family vacation photos, children's birthday parties, anniversary celebrations with Jennifer. Ben presented himself as a devoted family man, posting frequently about work-life balance and the importance of commitment. The hypocrisy was staggering. Jennifer Morrison's social media painted the picture of a stay-at-home mother devoted to her children. Her recent posts showed increasing signs of stress, complaints about Ben working late, concerns about their changed family dynamic, confusion about his decreased presence at home events. She was living the same reality I'd experienced, questioning her instincts, while her husband destroyed their marriage. By Thursday, I'd assembled a comprehensive dossier. Financial evidence of the affair, documentation of workplace policy violations, and proof of Ben's deception to his own family. The affair wasn't just personal betrayal. It was professional misconduct between supervisor and subordinate, creating liability for their employer. Fleming reviewed my evidence with approval. This is thorough work. We can file whenever you're ready. But filing for divorce was only the beginning. Erin and Ben had made choices that would hurt innocent people. Jennifer Morrison, their children, colleagues who trusted them professionally. Justice required consequences beyond legal proceedings. I researched their company's human resources policies. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates required disclosure and approval. Failure to report created grounds for termination, particularly when company resources were used to facilitate the relationship. Aaron's business trips, Ben's expense accounts, their use of company time and equipment to coordinate personal activities, all policy violations with career-ending implications. Jennifer Morrison deserved to know the truth about her marriage. Their children deserved a father who wasn't living a double life. Their employer deserved to know that senior staff were violating company policies and potentially creating legal liability. My transformation was complete. The trusting husband who'd given Aaron benefit of doubt no longer existed. In his place stood a man who understood that consequences required careful planning, that justice demanded strategic thinking, and that protecting innocent people sometimes meant destroying guilty ones. Aaron had chosen this path. Ben had enabled it. Now they would discover that choices have costs, and some prices are higher than they ever imagined. Aaron knew something was wrong the moment she tried to unlock the front door Friday evening and found the locks changed. I watched from the living room window as she fumbled with her keys, confusion transforming to frustration to growing alarm. When she finally rang the doorbell in her own home, the transformation was complete. I opened the door without emotion. No anger, no accusations, just clinical calm that immediately put her on edge. "Where are the locks changed?" she demanded, pushing past me into the house. "Have a seat, Aaron. We need to talk." Something in my tone stopped her mid-stride. She turned, studying my face with the careful attention of someone who just realized the game had changed. "I know about Ben Morrison." The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Denial was impossible when confronted with that level of certainty. I gestured toward the coffee table where I'd arranged the evidence like a prosecutor presenting a case. Photos from the hotel, bank statements highlighting suspicious charges, screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from our phone bills, the GPS tracker sitting like an accusation in the center. "Sit down," I repeated. She collapsed into the chair across from me, staring at the evidence of her betrayal spread out like a roadmap of deception. Her hands trembled as she reached for one of the photos. Her and Ben walking hand in hand outside the Cheyenne Mountain Resort. "Mark, I can explain," she stammered. "No explanations, just listen," I roared. I handed her a manila folder. Inside were divorce papers, filed that morning with the county courthouse. Petition for dissolution of marriage, citing adultery, with documented evidence of financial misconduct and marital asset misuse. Our joint accounts are frozen, pending court review. The house is in my name, purchased before our marriage. You have 30 days to remove your personal belongings. Aaron's professional composure cracked. "You can't just throw me out. This is my home, too." "Actually, I can. Check the property deed," I replied. She rifled through the papers with increasing desperation, looking for some angle, some technicality that might save her. But Fleming had been thorough. Every document was properly filed, every asset properly protected, every legal requirement satisfied. "What about my job?" Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. "Interesting question." I handed her another folder. "Ben's wife received copies of these photos this morning. Your Human Resources Department received documentation of policy violations this afternoon. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates require disclosure. Using company resources to facilitate personal relationships violates your employment contract." The second blow landed harder than the first. Aaron's face went ashen as she realized the scope of consequences I'd engineered. Not just personal destruction, but professional annihilation. "You've destroyed my career." "You destroyed your career. I just documented it," I replied. Her phone started buzzing. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, piling up as news of her exposure spread through professional and personal networks. Ben trying to coordinate damage control. Jennifer Morrison demanding explanations. HR scheduling emergency meetings. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough to protect myself," I replied. Aaron cycled through the stages of someone whose world had just imploded. Denial gave way to bargaining as she tried to negotiate some settlement that might salvage her situation. When that failed, anger emerged. "You're destroying innocent people," she accused. "Ben's children don't deserve this." Ben's children deserved a father who honored his marriage vows. Jennifer deserved a husband who told the truth. Neither of them got what they deserved because you and Ben made selfish choices. "We fell in love," she whispered. "You had an affair. Love doesn't require deception," I replied. The conversation continued for another hour, but the outcome never changed. Erin's attempts at manipulation fell flat against documented evidence. Her promises of changed behavior meant nothing when trust had been systematically destroyed. Her threats of legal action seemed hollow when facing superior preparation. By evening, the broader consequences were manifesting. Ben called 17 times before Erin finally answered, their conversation a whispered argument about blame and damage control. Jennifer Morrison's attorney had already contacted Fleming about supporting evidence in her own divorce proceedings. The Human Resources investigation was expanding to include other employees who might have known about policy violations. Erin packed 2 suitcases that night, moving like someone in shock. The confident woman who'd lied so easily about spa weekends and girls' trips had been replaced by someone facing the complete destruction of life as she knew it. "I never meant to hurt you," she said as she loaded her car. "Yes, you did. You hurt me every day for months. You just never meant to get caught." She drove away without looking back, leaving behind a marriage that had died long before I'd found the proof. The house felt different. Not empty, but clean. Like an infection had been removed and healing could finally begin. My phone buzzed with a text from Fleming. HR confirmed both terminated effective immediately. Ben's wife filed for divorce this afternoon. Justice served. Justice. The word felt appropriate but incomplete. Consequences had been delivered, innocent people had been informed, and guilty parties were facing appropriate penalties. But justice was cold comfort when sitting alone in a house that used to feel like home. Still, as I looked at the evidence scattered across the coffee table, proof of months of systematic deception, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Control. Not over other people's choices, but over my own response to them. Erin and Ben had chosen betrayal. I had chosen consequence. The difference between victim and victor was often just a matter of preparation and resolve. 6 months after the locks were changed, I found myself sitting in the same coffee shop where Erin used to meet Ben for their business lunches. The irony wasn't lost on me. Claiming territory they'd once thought was secret, drinking coffee in a space that had facilitated their deception. The aftermath had unfolded exactly as Fleming predicted. Erin's attempts to contest the divorce had failed spectacularly when faced with documented evidence of adultery and financial misconduct. She'd moved back to Phoenix with her sister, unemployed and effectively blacklisted in Colorado marketing circles. Professional networks are small, and news of her termination had spread quickly. Ben's situation was equally devastating. Jennifer had been thorough in her own divorce proceedings, using my evidence to secure primary custody of Emma and Jake. His relationship with his children was limited to supervised visits, his reputation in professional circles destroyed by the HR investigation. The man, who'd posted constantly about work-life balance and commitment, had become a cautionary tale about the cost of hypocrisy. Their affair had survived exactly 3 weeks after exposure, before imploding under the weight of consequences neither had anticipated. Turns out that relationships built on deception and fantasy don't translate well to reality when both parties are unemployed, divorced, and facing social ostracism. I'd rebuilt systematically, approaching recovery with the same methodical precision I'd used for revenge. New job at a tech startup that valued my skills without the corporate politics that had cost me my previous position. New social circle of people who didn't know my story or treat me like a victim to be pitied. New routines that didn't revolve around monitoring someone else's deception. Dating again had been surprisingly challenging, not because of trust issues, I'd learned to read warning signs more carefully, but because of who I'd become through the process. The man who'd married Erin had been trusting to the point of naivety. This man was observant, careful, strategic in ways that sometimes surprised potential partners. "You're different than most guys I date," Sarah had said after our 3rd dinner together. You pay attention to details. You ask follow-up questions. It's like you're solving puzzles in your head. She wasn't wrong. Experience had taught me that people revealed themselves through inconsistencies, through the gaps between words and actions. I'd learned to listen for those gaps, to notice when stories didn't align, to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. Some might call it paranoid. I called it informed. The final piece of my investigation was destroyed on a Tuesday morning in March. 2 years of evidence, photos, documents, tracking records, financial statements, fed into an industrial shredder I'd rented for the day. Not from guilt about my actions, but from a desire to stop living in the shadow of someone else's betrayal. Watching those papers disappear felt like closing a chapter I'd never wanted to write. The man who'd assembled that evidence with such careful precision was still part of me, but he didn't need to be the whole of me. Erin had made her choices. I'd made mine. The consequences had played out exactly as designed, with justice served and innocent parties protected. But justice, I'd learned, was a cold companion compared to the possibility of genuine connection with someone capable of honesty. The question now wasn't whether I could trust again, it was whether I could find someone worth trusting. Someone whose words matched their actions, whose phone wasn't a fortress of secrets, whose affection wasn't rationed based on financial circumstances. Someone who understood that love, without honesty, wasn't love at all. The coffee shop hummed with ordinary conversations, couples planning weekend trips that were actually weekend trips, people discussing work challenges that were actually about work, normal interactions between people who'd chosen transparency over deception. I finished my coffee and walked out into the Colorado sunshine, leaving behind the shadows of surveillance and suspicion. The past had been documented, consequences delivered, and justice served. Now it was time to build something better than what I'd destroyed. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.